Well, good afternoon, everyone, and warm Pacific greetings to you all. Welcome to today's webinar on preserving and promoting breadfruit biodiversity, the fifth session of a six-part series celebrating the transformative power of farmer organizations across the Pacific. We are so pleased that you could join us for this important conversation that sits at the intersection of food security, cultural heritage, and sustainable agriculture. Breadfruit is more than a crop. It is a symbol of resilience, tradition, and possibility. Across the Pacific, it sustains communities, embodies ancestral knowledge, and now, through projects like the FORI Pacific Breadfruit Project, it is being revitalized as a cornerstone for diversified and climate-resilient farming systems. Before we continue, we'd also want to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our donors and development partners, whose support continues to make initiatives like the FORI project and events like today possible. As we continue on, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat or the Q&A. If you haven't already done so, please introduce yourself on the chat as well with your name, the organization that you represent, and the country you're from. We'd love to know where you're listening in from. Today, we are privileged to be joined by two remarkable speakers who are deeply committed to preserving and promoting breadfruit diversity in the Pacific. Firstly, we have Noel, who is the coordinator of the Breadfruit Institute, whose passion for rural food security and sustainable diversified agriculture continues to shape the global conversation around breadfruit as a solution for food and nutrition security. Today, Noel will be speaking on the importance of breadfruit diversity. So over to you, Noel.
Okay, great. I am going to attempt to share my screen, but if I can't, can you guys share my presentation?
We can definitely do that, yeah.
Okay, let me try to do this. My computer has these like security features on it that don't let me.
Okay.
So yeah.
Would you like us to share?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we'll do that now.
Okay, great. I am so excited to share with you folks kind of a general sort of view. I have like 15 to 20 minutes, so not that much time, but yeah. Thank you to the Pacific Farmer Organization for hosting this important webinar series that includes today's topic, preserving and promoting breadfruit diversity. So as Mohinash said, my name is Noel Dickinson, and I'm coordinator for the Breadfruit Institute at the National Tropical Botanical Garden, based on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. So it's a pleasure to join you again and to share some of the work that we're doing at the Institute to document, conserve, and promote the remarkable biodiversity of breadfruit. Next slide. So today I'll be talking about why breadfruit diversity matters for cultural heritage, food security, climate resilience, and sustainable livelihoods, as well as what we currently know about breadfruit diversity in the Pacific, how institutions like the Breadfruit Institute at NTBG are working with partners to conserve and document this invaluable crop, as well as I'll kind of be going over some generalities and in the direction that the Institute is trying to focus conservation priorities currently. So this work is possible through collective efforts, and this, again, why I'm so happy to be here. So the efforts of farmers, cultural practitioners, researchers, and networks like the Pacific Farmers Organization and SPC. Next slide. Okay. So throughout the Pacific, breadfruit has been a staple food and a cultural keystone species for generations. But beyond being a food source, it represents centuries of traditional knowledge, cultural identity, and biocultural resilience. Preserving breadfruit's genetic diversity ensures that we have regenerative and sustainable agroecosystems in the Pacific, that we ensure that we have food security and nutritional resilience in the Pacific, as well as climate adaptation through some varieties being drought tolerant or salt tolerant. There's a diversity of cultivars. So sustaining cultural foodways is another thing that's ensured, or traditional knowledge. And ensuring breadfruit's diversity also provides opportunities for research and knowledge co-creation as well as sharing. So breadfruit diversity is not just about the number of cultivars. It's about preserving a living legacy that holds cultural, ecological, economic value for Pacific peoples. Next slide. And so here are some examples of the breadfruit that I work with. And we often think of breadfruit as a single crop, but it's actually part of a complex of related species. We call it the breadfruit complex. And there's 3 species within this breadfruit complex. First is the one that comes to mind, or the first one that comes to mind is Artocarpus altilis, and that's what we all know as breadfruit. And so that top row of images kind of shows you some quintessential round, kind of smooth skin breadfruit or Artocarpus altilis, and these are Polynesian varieties of breadfruit. Artocarpus camansi in the lower left-hand corner is also known as breadnut or kapiak. And this is a wild seed propagated relative from Papua New Guinea and Southeast Asia. So this is a forest tree, and its seeds are highly nutritious. And then the third species is Artocarpus marinensis on the lower right-hand side. And this is called traditionally dokdok, and it's native to the Marianas Islands and basically Micronesia. There's also breadfruit hybrids, and these are crosses between naturally crossed and human-mediated hybridization. So they're crosses between Artocarpus altilis and marinensis. So each species and cultivar carries unique traits, as you can see in the pictures, from fruit shape to texture to fruit yield patterns or seasonality, tolerance to different environmental conditions. There's a lot left to explore and understand about breadfruit. Next slide. Okay, so at the Breadfruit Institute, which is part of the National Tropical Botanical Garden, and actually specifically a part of the Science and Conservation Department. We focus on conservation, study, and sustainable use of breadfruit. So our living collection first began in 1977 and has since grown through collaborative fieldwork and exchanges with communities across 34 Pacific islands, as well as parts of Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, and the Seychelles, actually. So today our collection and research serves as a resource for farmers and communities working to strengthen food systems in the Pacific. And here you can see Dr. Rigoni, who is one of she's the founder of the Breadfruit Institute and has done most of the collection, as well as in the lower picture, the collection itself serves as an educational resource for local students. So we're planting a new tree in the agroforest there at McBride Garden on Kauai. Okay, next slide. So the collection the breadfruit collection at NTBG is quite large, and it represents it has 380 accessions. So we call they're trees, individual trees. So they're within the collection at NTBG. The bulk of that collection is over at Kahanu Garden in Hana on Maui, and being cared for and managed by our breadfruit collections manager, Kaitu Aracito. So there's 380 trees. Within that, 150 named cultivars are represented, including 34 accessions of red nut, as well as 12 accessions of the doc or Artocarpus marinensis. Additionally, there's 70 hybrid accessions represented within the collection. So across the Pacific, as Dr. Rigoni and her colleagues were conducting field studies, cumulatively, they recorded more than 2,000 vernacular names for breadfruit in that time. And so what that tells us is not only a big number, because sometimes you can have one variety that has several names, but even given that fact, it tells us that there is much more diversity than what the NTBG has in our collection. So there's a lot more, again, to understand about breadfruit diversity in the Pacific and its current status. So next slide. So to preserve the diversity, at least that we have in our collection, the Institute really takes two strategies. The first one, ex situ conservation, is the one that we have been, because of capacity, limited capacity, that we have really focused on. So in other words, maintaining our breadfruit living collection in our botanical garden, and conducting research over the years on the collection itself and understanding how best to do basic things like tree care and pruning. And the one that definitely needs more work and collaborative work is in situ conservation, or breadfruit that is being grown by farmers and communities. And those farmers and communities might be growing them in diverse agroforests, home garden settings, or even plantation settings. And this in situ conservation is equally as important as the ex situ, if not even more. So we also practice within the collection safety duplication through air layering, and which is a vegetative propagation method to ensure that there's no unique cultivar that's lost from our collection. And so here's some examples of some more fruit. Dr. Rigoni and I are collecting a breadfruit voucher specimen that would be dried and then placed in the herbarium, which is basically like a library for plant material. I'm oversimplifying it, but represented in our herbarium, which is a whole nother thing, are more than 300 specimens field collected and then also meta collected from our collection here at NTBG. So next slide. So promoting breadfruit diversity is not only about preserving plants and collections, it's about integrating diverse breadfruit cultivars into resilient agroforestry systems. And we have an example of this at our regenerative organic breadfruit agroforestry demonstration on Kauai. We cultivate multiple cultivars. Specifically, there are 32 cultivars of breadfruit, and also bread nut and duck. So these are cultivated alongside complementary crops to model sustainable food forest. And since the start of the agroforestry project in 2017, the agroforest has produced, and we have donated more than 30 tons of fresh produce, the bulk of which is breadfruit, to local food banks, all while maintaining a collection. So While this model of diverse breadfruit agroforestry may not be quite attainable for our local Kauai or even Hawaii farmers to a degree, we hope to at least have this demonstration be a way that living collections can be managed in a sustainable way and utilized for the food that is being produced by these trees. Next slide. And so it's important to remember that breadfruit would not exist but for the people of the Pacific. And with each breadfruit cultivar comes a body of traditional knowledge, including names, origin stories, cultivation methods, and food preparation techniques, and other traditional uses. So this traditional ecological knowledge could provide the basis for modern Pacific innovation, including climate solutions. There's much more to be understood about breadfruit diversity and how that diversity can help the Pacific to be more resilient to shocks, climate shocks. So through collaboration and partnership, our aim, the Institute's aim is that our conservation work not only documents ethnobotanical knowledge for the future, but helps to preserve and co-create knowledge based on this traditional ecological knowledge. So breadfruit isn't just a crop, it's a biocultural resource. Next slide. So there are some challenges to breadfruit. And this topic, as the slide says, is understudied or not well understood. And these challenges could include loss of cultivars due to climate change impacts, which might affect sustainability of breadfruit growing regions and breadfruit productivity. There's also invasive species and land use change that could reduce the habitat for the wild species or wild relatives of breadfruit. So think of the breadnut in Papua New Guinea or the dokdok in Guam and the Marianas Islands. Also, knowledge erosion, as younger generations may lose connection with traditional varieties and practices due to loss of cultivars. And so these things are very interconnected, but again, this is not well understood, but it's important that this collective work to prevent these things is prioritized and kept urgent and really understood to be essential, because we don't want to just know these varieties on a poster, right? Like is pictured here. We want to be able to actually have access to these important trees. Okay, so next slide. So moving forward, some of the Institute's general priorities include supporting and engaging in relationship building and stewardship of those relationships with our stakeholders, as well as understanding the representativeness of in situ and ex situ collections through community partnerships, also supporting farmer-led conservation initiatives and research, including integrating breadfruit into diverse food systems for climate resilience, as well as ethnobotanical documentation and knowledge co-creation. And finally, characterizing cultivars and documenting morphological and ecological traits. So we believe that preserving breadfruit diversity is a collective regional responsibility, and we look forward to partnering and understanding how to support this work. Next slide. So finally, I just wanted to share my contact information. There's my email. If you want to write me a letter or send me a postcard, I will send you one back. I want to thank the Pacific Farmer Organization and Mohinesh for reaching out and giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about our intentions and the work that we've been doing so far and the collection at NTBG. Yeah, I look forward to questions. I guess the last slide is not really anything, but.
Oh, thank you, Noel, for sharing. It's great to hear about the work that the Breadfruit Institute is undertaking, and the history, the conservation efforts, and the sustainability efforts being put in. It also great to hear about the challenges in terms of the loss of cultivars and the climate change impacts and the knowledge erosion, and that is something that we're trying to mitigate and work towards to the farmer-led research initiatives taken to through the Pacific Breadfruit Project. So thank you for sharing. Our next speaker is from the Solomon Islands. His name is Pita Tikai, and he leads the Kastom Garden Association. And the Kastom Garden Association is one of the implementers of the Pacific FORI Breadfruit Project in the Pacific. Peter brings a rich and grounded insight into how farmers are preserving varieties, improving practices, and strengthening local food systems through breadfruit cultivation. So we'll hand it over to Peter for his presentation.
Hello.
Hi, Peter.
Can you
We
see
can hear you.
Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much. As for Solomon Island, I think we have behind, started a little bit late from other Pacific countries in terms of breadfruit projects. So I'll be more talking on the strategies that Kastom Garden is using, that is for on-farm conservation and also integration of breadfruit into agroforestry system. Just a quick glance of Kastom Garden so that some of you might know a little bit of what we are doing. So that it is, we established as a NGO, and then we our main focus is we work with farmers on a local network, which we call it planting material network. We have now currently, we have more than 7,000 members under that a local network, and our main aim is to support farmers through production and distribution, conservation and sharing of local and imported planting materials or improved varieties, and to help farmers strengthen PMN farmers or villages groups by forming a number of community-based organizations which we use and we work with in terms of implementing of projects and also distribution of innovations or planting materials. And these rural based partners play the vital role as implementing partners in delivering Kastom Garden services and programs in the rural communities. Now I'll just touch on Kastom Garden's strategy for on-farm conservation, which we also integrate breadfruit into whatever farming system that we work with farmers. And one is we do seed saving. We train farmers, or we work with farmers on how to save seeds of open pollinated plants or crops, which includes breadfruit or even vegetative crops. We encourage farmers to save their own seeds, especially for traditional food crops like root crops. This helps preserve local crop varieties and also promote self-sufficiency to our farmers or rural populations. And also we have worked with farmer field schools when we do bulking of planting materials, or even provide whatever capacity buildings to help our farmers. We do farmer field schools. It's just started. We want to formalize it, so we work with the Ministry of Agriculture, so that this become a innovation or a tool which farmers can use to conduct practical trainings through FFS or Farmer Field School to enhance farmers' knowledge on biodiversity and agroecological practices. And the focus that is focused on building local capacity to manage our traditional crops, and also the farm and whatever they are doing. And one thing where we also do is that we established what we call germplasm centers in the provinces, where we support communities or women's group at a community level to have a seed bank or a seed garden. These germplasm centers is where we conserve our planting materials, indigenous planting material especially. And also this is where our farmers around the surrounding communities, around the germplasm centers, will have access to collect the planting materials that they can also use for propagations or whatever. So this is one thing we do. So we do collections, proper labeling, and then on the germplasm centers, as you see a pot on the right, someone stating with labels. They normally label these collections so that when we receive these collections, or when they send it out from the germplasm centers to another germplasm centers, the labels or name can be maintained. Yeah, because these crops, we try to track their characteristics in terms of climate resilience to pest and disease, or tolerance to salt or whatever. Yeah, so this is where we try to track it out. So even with breadfruit, we collect and bulk them at germplasm centers, where they will eventually, but it took time, but where they will eventually, the community will eventually evaluate these collections, and then they can keep track of the characteristic of each varieties and so forth. And one thing that we normally do is we held diversity fairs at the germplasm centers or in a community where farmers come around, and then they can evaluate the collections. That is one highlight. They evaluate the collection, what is on the field, or if the crops are ready to harvest or have been harvested, that they will do all these phenotypic tests of each varieties, and then they can retain what is best for them, and then give it out to our community, and what is not good in terms of their own choices, whether it's marketable or could be yield or pest resistance or whatever. This is where they'll make choices on whether to maintain it or they have to throw it away. So we allow these germplasm centers to do a mass collections of what is available or what is eaten or what is grown around their communities. And at the evaluations, or especially during these fairs, this is where they'll do the evaluations, and they will select which is superior or best to their choice, and this is where they maintain or share. Yes, so this is what you can see on these germplasm centers. This is what they do. So some of the germplasm centers even set up a model that can be resilient to climate change. Okay, so in terms of providing a reliable source of food security, it also has a diversity of crops that can provide the food throughout the year, and also resistance to the climate changes and so forth. Yeah, and also we do exchange of farmer to farmer exchange, where farmers visit the other farmer, they learn what others are doing, and they can bring back to improve their own farming system, or also integrated it with their existing knowledge and so forth. And we try to document all our crops, as I said earlier. We monitor their growth, and we try to keep track of what is their characteristics, and also these also broaden our collections. And when I said we exchange and share plenty material, we also broaden the crop diversity for the other islands as well. Or if a cyclone, a natural disaster, hits one part of our country, Kastom Garden can get plenty material or from the other islands that we can further share it or distributed it to the islands that have been hit by cyclone or flooding or whatever. So it sort of help us in terms of conserving our planting resources, and at the same time, I think it complements the tissue culture conservation strategy. And the promotion of traditional crops. So with Breadfruit, we try to promote whatever products that can be used for home consumptions, and also add value to market. Now, touching a little bit on the integration of Breadfruit into forestry systems. So this is where we encourage farmers, rows that have existed breadfruit trees around the garden or farm. We try to now ask them to be diversified or on an forestry system. They can grow whatever crops. So we try to consider all these factors, the leaf shade, and which shade tolerance variety can be grown under the breadfruit and so forth. So that is basically, you can just look through and see. No need for me to spend more time on that. But that is basically what we are doing. And support, we can still continue on that. So with this system is more helping farmer to be resilient to climate change, because they grow a diversity of crops in the garden that are tolerant to drought or flooding or whatever, or pest and disease. And also some of the crops that are grown on this agroforestry system can also provide nutrition, and they are also we are on farm conservation of our own indigenous variety too at the same time. And we can talk more on what are contributing factors in terms of soil, pest resilience, food security, and so forth. And also with the breadfruit, not only growing it, but we try to work with farmers on potential opportunity for economic opportunities, that is marketing. So they come up with some local recipes and whatever preserving methods, using the local traditional preservation methods, and try to integrate it with our methods from the other Pacific countries. This is what we are working on. And we will still be having a fair or diversity fair where we will try to even document the local recipes and so forth under this project, FORI project. Yep. So community-based, as we have seen, is very very helpful to us. As I've said earlier, that we involve farmers, farmer schools, women and youths are involved, and then even the community, all communities are also involved in these conservation practices. Way forward, we would like to encourage local partnership in conservation, strengthening our farmer networks. That is for us is PMN, that is Planting Material Network, as I mentioned earlier. Currently more than 7,000 members. So most of them, we don't reach them because they are from isolated or more remote islands. So now we are trying our best on how to reach our farmers in these areas. And also, there's a focus will also be on institutional support and training gaps, on crop agronomy, support to farmer-led conservation. I like that. You've also mentioned our first presenter, improve access to planting materials. So currently we are bulking these planting materials of breadfruit that will be distributed to our surrounding communities and also our germplasm centers. One important thing that we also would like to see strengthen is this partnership, national government, NGOs, researchers, and also at the regional collaboration, which we experience now with the Pacific Breadfruit Network. And also on characterization of our local collections, and we still continue on collections and multiplications too. For conclusions, I think breadfruit is a symbol of resilience and cultural continuity. On-farm conservation empowers the communities. Agroforestry is key to sustainability. So preserving breadfruit is preserving our identity and food for future. So with this, I just like this quote here. Business as usual won't work. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. We shall require substantially new manner of thinking if mankind is to survive. I think this is very important quote that for us, Kastom Gaden approach, or KGA, is using participatory, practical, grassroots approaches that enable village people to examine, understand, develop, appreciate, and value their own solutions to improving household food security, livelihood through village-based organic or traditional farming system, because we try to maintain that, because we believe our traditional farming system, or when we talk about agroecological farming system or whatever, our traditional farming system is based on this, addressing the climate change. I think our farming system can work on addressing the climate change that we are facing today. I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter, for your very interesting presentation on the work being done by KGA in the Solomon Islands in terms of preserving crop biodiversity and with the focus on community-led conservation. It was great to hear about the seed saving initiative and the diversity fairs, and also to know that women are being empowered to the process as well. So thank you very much, Peter. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat, or you can use the Q&A feature to ask a question as well. We have a question from Mark from the Hawaii Tropical Fruit Growers Association. And his question is, what are the issues with cultural propriety? Noel, do you want to tackle that one?
And I think that it's a complex question, and that I can talk about it from the perspective of a botanical garden collection here in the global north, because Hawaii is the global north, the US, right? And there are organizations such as the Crop Trust and FAO who have come together to create a international treaty on the preservation of plant genetic resources, traditional plant genetic resources. And one of the points brought up in this treaty is benefit sharing, because as I mentioned, specifically for breadfruit and what are known here in Hawaii, some or most of the canoe crops. These are cultural, traditional plants that would not exist in the state that they are, but for the people. And so there's some intellectual propriety there, right? And so I think it's complex to understand how to benefit share in that way. But maybe there's others who have some idea about these things. Yeah.
Thank you, Noel. Mark would also be interested in knowing, what are the best practices with propagation and production? Maybe Peter, you want to handle this one?
Thank you, Mohimes. Maybe I'm not the right expert on this, but I can say what we do is that the best practice propagation practice that for breadfruit from context here in Solomon Island, which we experience with farmers, is one is using of the vegetative part of the plant, which is its root propagation in terms of survival. In terms of survival, yes. Farmers are also doing marketing or grafting, but it needs a bit of skill, to handle these propagation techniques. But for a rural farmer, at the village level, using of root cuttings is more appropriate or fast for them to do because it's rooted very fast, and so forth. In terms of yield, I'm not in that there to answer because maybe there would be differences in terms of vegetative yield of vegetative propagation compared with seeds, propagation. So that might be something that maybe somebody who has discovered it or through our research can tell us. But that's all I can say, Moines.
I can add to that a little bit that there are some good resources online, particularly about marcotting or air layering. I noticed there's some people in the chat from the Ulu Cooperative. They have some really nice YouTube and videos and documents about how to propagate your breadfruit, as well as production. And then the Institute actually has a breadfruit production guide, which talks about these things as well, specifically about when is the best time to harvest your fruit so that you have the maximum amount of nutrients in it. And how to recognize those mature fruit for some varieties. I can put it in the chat.
Oh, that would be great, Noel. I think there's a follow-up question, Noel, to your previous answer from Elias. And it reads, I read the treaty allows a loophole for open source hybrids.
Yes, so this is the interesting thing. Yeah, it does allow for this. It's that the breadfruit, though, is an island, it's the people of the Pacific are island people, and this is a complex thing, and I'm maybe not the best person to talk about this. I just think that we shouldn't try to sidestep benefit sharing and acknowledge that and really confront that, because that benefit sharing could lead to sustainability and resilience for Pacific Island communities as well. These are amazing. You saw some of the pictures. Those are only a few of the varieties in the Pacific. And yeah, I think that it's worth, instead of trying to create new ones, let's see what is already existing and how to benefit share in a way that helps both parties. So, but these are kind of like broad, sort of abstract. I don't know if they're abstract or not, but it's my opinion a little bit. So yeah, I don't know if that adds to the conversation or answers questions, but yeah.
Thank you. There's some interesting conversations happening on the chat right now with individuals from different organizations sharing the successes that they've had with different propagation methods, and people are sharing the context and additional information as well on the chat side. There is Katie has written about a variety known as lippet. I'm not sure if anyone is aware, but she would like to know why it isn't more widely grown and propagated. And if anyone could share about the variety.
So I'm familiar with lipid. It's a Micronesian hybrid variety. And I think Katie may be referring to, why isn't it more, I'm trying to look at the question, more widely grown and propagated? Is it here in Hawaii? Because Big Island has lipid. I've seen quite a few lipid trees, very few on Kauai where I am now. But I think maybe the reason why in Hawaii you see a lot of Ma'afala, maybe, and maybe Otea and Ulufiti is because of the efforts of the Institute and this mass propagation that was made possible by tissue culture. And so, yeah, we are trying to position ourselves to get more diversity out there. But then that circles back to this idea of Nagoya protocols and benefit sharing. And because we're a botanic garden and our main focus is conservation. Yeah, I don't know why there's not more lipid, because it's a very nice, it's delicious, large fruit. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Noel. I think Lex wanted to share a little bit from information on his findings on breadfruit. So Lex, if you're able to talk, we'll probably give you next 5 minutes to do so if you want to share briefly.
Yeah, thanks, Monash. Can you hear me now? Or...
We can hear you now, yes. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Monash. Yeah. Thank you very much, Noel and Peter, for your excellent presentations. I just wanted to give some information on our work. We were looking at how Polynesians move throughout the Pacific, and it's generally believed that Polynesians reached Eastern Polynesia, Tahiti, Hawaii, New Zealand, and so on via Samoa or somewhere in that area, whereas what Professor William Wilson and others have shown is that they originated in the Polynesian outlier islands near Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, and Papua New Guinea. And we started to look at plants like hibiscus, like the fe'i banana, and like breadfruit, paper mulberry, and saw how they moved. And it became apparent that breadfruit is not a domesticate of Artocarpus commensai, but rather it's a native species of remote Oceania. And it originated in either the far southeast corner of Solomon Islands in Tuamotu province, or more likely in Torres and Banks Island in Vanuatu, especially islands like Motalava. So this has great implications for conservation and domestication of Artocarpus altilis. The fact that it is a native species of remote Oceania, probably the only really substantial food plant from remote Oceania. and it has implications for even the terminology for its conservation. Noel was using the terminology in situ and ex situ conservation. Well, given that breadfruit is a native species of remote Oceania, really the only true in situ conservation would be to relocate those wild populations in Motolava or Torreson Banks, and that would be a spot where you could do in situ conservation. The other conservation that where the terminology in situ conservation is being used is really what's called circa situ conservation, where you're conserving those trees on farmers' fields and in agroforests and so on. But I've given in the chat, I've given the reference to our paper, which was in the Journal of South Pacific Agriculture in 2023, and you can see our reasoning for why we believe Artocarpus altilis is a native species of the northern Vanuatu. Anyway, I'm happy to take questions, Mohanesh. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lex, for sharing. I forgot to mention that Lex is from the University of Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Peter, would you like to share something?
Yep. Maybe just a comment. Thank you so much, Lex. Sorry. Just maybe a comment on the origin or whatever you said about the breadfruit. That is interesting because one of our main collection site with this current breadfruit project was in Temotu. That is far, remote island in Solomon Island, where we did the collection, and currently we have collected more in I think almost 90 sort of we say it's a different trees, but yet to be confirmed in terms of their differences, but with the phenotypic characterizations, we thought that they have quite a huge variety of breadfruit there in Temotu. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Peter. And Kastom gardeners and some of your colleagues have been very helpful in informing our work and just indicating the incredible biodiversity in Temotu province. Like there's one breadfruit that especially interests me, which is has a purple coloured flesh, which we know that those compounds, those anthocyanins that develop in purple coloured flesh, are particularly valuable for human nutrition. So the fact that that one has been selected in that area is very interesting, and it'd be great for that to be both conserved but more widely used. I see that recently in Australia we've got a tomato that's got genes from I think a lily that have given it a purple coloured fruit, but in breadfruit we have a naturally coloured purple fruit that we could be using and sharing. Thank you, Peter. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lex, Peter, and Noel for sharing. There's some interesting conversations still happening on the chat and a lot of sharing. Hopefully we can continue this sharing outside of the space and in future webinars. Unfortunately, we have come close to the time that we need to finish for the webinar. So thank you. We'll finish here, and thank you for joining in. And we look forward to you joining us for the final session of the 6-part series, which is scheduled for the 2nd of July. So a big Vinaka Vakalevu, and thank you to all the presenters for sharing. Vinaka.